Welcome back. And today I'm looking at the most unfortunate bear encounter ever recorded.
From a wilderness creator who risked everything for the perfect grizzly encounter, to a guide who sacrificed himself so a newlywed couple could escape. But first, we begin with a father who survived one bear attack but made the fatal decision to go back. It was June 3rd, 2021, on a backcountry trail in Wyoming, and the morning had started the way good hiking days usually do. Zevrik Hollow was 46 years old and worked as an accountant at a firm in the city.
Free weekends were rare for him, and the ones that came around usually disappeared into errands and obligations.
His wife had traveled abroad for a week-long business meeting, and he decided the timing was right to spend a proper day outdoors with his 19-year-old son before the young man left for college later that year. They had hiked together before, and both of them enjoyed it. They wanted to spend one of their last weekends together before college separates them. I think about how many people would recognize that feeling without ever having lived through what came next. The night before the trip, they packed carefully. Water, food, bear spray, a first aid kit, and an emergency beacon all went into Zevrik's backpack, along with both of their phones and the car keys. He wanted everything important in one place. They drove into grizzly country early the next morning and started along a remote trail that followed a fishing creek through the forest. The hike began well. They talked and took photographs and stopped several times to look at the scenery. Nothing about the first stretch of trail felt unusual.
What they did not know was that a partially buried elk carcass was hidden in the tree close to the trail.
A grizzly had been feeding there and had not gone far. Grizzly bears are intensely protective of food sources and will charge anything they perceive as a threat to a carcass, often without extended warning. As the two of them rounded a bend in the trail, the bear came out of the trees at speed. There was almost no warning. The grizzly hit Zevrik before he could do anything and knocked him to the ground. His son pulled out the bear spray immediately and fired several bursts toward the animal. The spray reached the bear and it pulled back and retreated into the trees. The attack had lasted only seconds. Both of them were shaken, but on their feet and able to move. They started back toward the trailhead as quickly as they could. About half a mile down the trail, Zevrik stopped. His backpack was gone. It had come off during the attack and was still lying back near the carcass site. Inside it were both phones, the car keys, and the emergency beacon. Without the backpack, they had no way to drive home and no reliable way to call for help if anything else went wrong. I seriously can't help but wonder how his trip was as he went back to that place. Zevrik told his son to keep moving to the trailhead and wait there. His son argued and told him the bear was likely still close to the carcass. Zevrik believed the spray had pushed it far enough away and that he would be back quickly. He turned around and walked back alone. The bear had never left. It had returned to the elk carcass after the spray drove it off and was still there when Zevrik came back into the area. He would have seen the backpack on the ground near the carcass site and understood immediately that the animal was close. There was no second round of bear spray. He had given the canister to his son.
The bear charged from a short distance with no barrier between them.
It struck him across the upper body and drove him into the ground. Once he was down, the animal bit into the back of his skull and upper neck with enough force to cause immediate and catastrophic trauma. The attack was over quickly, but the damage was not survivable. Zevrik was found face down a short distance from where the backpack had fallen. His son waited at the trailhead for over 2 hours before a passing hiker noticed him standing alone and helped him contact park rangers. Rescue teams moved into the area immediately. They found the backpack where it had landed during the first attack. The grizzly was still nearby guarding the carcass. A short distance away, they found Zevrik. His son stood at that trailhead for 2 hours, not knowing. I cannot imagine what those 2 hours felt like. Zevrik Hollow died from injuries sustained during the second encounter. The coroner's report concluded that Zevrik Hollow died from catastrophic head and upper neck injuries sustained during a grizzly bear attack, with the injuries determined to be immediately fatal. The investigation concluded that the grizzly had been defending a partially buried elk carcass only a short distance from the trail. He was laid to rest by his son and wife. I think about Zevrik's son standing at that trailhead alone for 2 hours. And then I think about the next person I want to cover. A man who went out alone on purpose with a camera pointed at himself, waiting for a bear to appear. It was May 24th, 2019, in Montana, and the creek had been quiet for hours before the brush moved. Kibane Carter was 31 years old and had spent 2 years building an outdoor reaction channel with a following that had grown steadily because of one thing: he never faked anything. His viewers came back because the fear on his face was real, the hesitation was real, and the situations he put himself in were real. He had started with harmless outdoor content before gradually moving toward wildlife encounters, and the closer he got, the more the numbers grew. He had already survived 2 close calls before Montana. In Africa, he had filmed himself reacting to a lion from what he believed was a safe distance before the animal began moving toward him, and local guides intervened. A few months later, he had crept too close to a large crocodile for a better camera angle and had to scramble backward when it lunged toward the shoreline.
Both times he walked away, and both times he came away with the same conclusion.
He understood dangerous animals better than most people gave him credit for. 2 close calls that both ended fine. I have read enough of these cases to know that surviving something twice does not make the 3rd time safer. But what happens next might prove us wrong. That belief brought him to Montana. He spent weeks researching locations where grizzly bears were regularly seen during fishing season, and eventually chose a remote area in the mountains known for frequent activity near creek beds. He drove nearly 4 hours into the wilderness on the morning of May 24th and hiked toward a stretch of creek where fresh bear tracks had been reported. When he found more tracks near the water, he set his tripod up facing the tree line, pointed the camera at his own position, and began recording. He wanted his genuine reaction the moment a bear appeared. He kept his bear spray secured in its holster on his hip rather than in his hand because he expected the animal to emerge much further away and did not want the canister visible in the shot.
Because it was the peak of the fishing season, bears regularly use the creek to feed on spawning fish.
Kibane had unknowingly set up near one of the bear's normal feeding routes. When the grizzly emerged from the brush and saw him at close range, it continued toward him instead of turning away. For several minutes, nothing moved. Then the brush at the tree line shifted and a large grizzly stepped out, approximately 30 feet away. Kibane froze the moment he saw it. The bear locked onto him and began moving forward without hesitation. 30 feet? I keep trying to picture that distance and what those first seconds must have felt like standing there with the camera still running behind him. He reached for the bear spray, but the holster clip did not release cleanly and several seconds passed while he worked it open. The bear was already closing the distance when he finally raised the canister and discharged it. Grizzly bears can cover 30 feet in under 2 seconds when they charge. The spray reached the animal at the edge of the cloud, but the bear had already covered most of the ground between them, and the concentration at that range was not enough to stop the charge fully. The bear made contact before the deterrent could take effect. It struck him across the upper chest and shoulder with one paw, and the force alone dropped him to the ground. Once he was down, the animal bit into the back of his neck and upper back with enough force to fracture vertebrae and cause immediate and severe spinal trauma. The attack lasted less than 30 seconds.
When it was over, Kibane was face down near the creek bank and could not move.
Kibane never made it back to his vehicle. When his family could not reach him, they reported him missing, and search teams entered the area the following day. They found him near the creek. The bear spray canister was still in his hand. His camera was lying a short distance away where it had fallen. Kibane Carter died from injuries sustained during the encounter. The coroner's report stated that Kibane Carter suffered fatal cervical spine fractures and severe neck trauma during a grizzly bear attack, resulting in rapid death at the scene. Investigators recovered the camera, and the memory card had survived. The footage was retained as evidence before being returned to the family. His brother posted the final video himself. He asked viewers not to risk their lives for content. I think about what it must have taken to sit down and record that.
Kibane chose to be out there alone. The next person I want to tell you about did everything carefully, lived in the environment for years, and still could not predict what came through her front door in the middle of the night.
It was 28th October 2020 near Thompson, Manitoba. The forest was quiet as autumn settled into the northern landscape and temperatures began to drop toward winter. Vesper Quinn was 43 years old and had spent 6 years living alone in a small cabin surrounded by the forest. A difficult divorce had changed her life.
The legal battle drained most of her savings, and she eventually sold her home and left the city to start over.
She found peace in the quiet wilderness of northern Manitoba. She worked remotely, grew vegetables during the summer, and enjoyed the slower pace of life. Her nearest neighbor lived several miles away, but they checked on each other once every week. 6 years of rebuilding something quieter after everything fell apart. I find something genuinely moving about that, choosing a forest over a city because the city had taken too much from her. Living in bear country meant following rules every day. Vesper stored food carefully, kept garbage secured, and cleaned anything that might attract wildlife. Black bears were common in the area, and she had seen many over the years without any serious problems. She always kept bear spray hanging beside the front door in case she ever needed it. As the years passed, the routine made her feel safe. She knew the warnings about bears, but her experience suggested that careful behavior was enough to prevent problems. The cabin had never been broken into. No animals had ever forced their way inside. Her system worked. On the afternoon of 28th October, Vesper caught and smoked several fish outside her cabin. She cleaned everything afterward and believed she had removed anything that might attract animals. She swept the porch, rinsed the cleaning area, and went inside satisfied that she had done everything right. She went to bed that night believing everything was normal.
Unknown to her, the smell of smoked fish still lingered around the cabin, even though she could not detect it anymore.
Late October is a time when black bears eat almost constantly before winter, a period known as hyperphagia. Driven by the need to build fat reserves, they may investigate powerful food smells more aggressively than at other times of the year. A bear's sense of smell is 7 times better than a bloodhound's, and they can detect food scents from miles away. At around 2 o'clock in the morning, a large male black bear reached the cabin. It sniffed around the porch before testing the front door. She did everything she was supposed to do. Cleaned up, rinsed everything, went inside, satisfied. And it still was not enough. That is the part of this case I keep returning to. The old latch had become worn after years of use. The first shove held. The second did not. The door swung open. Vesper woke immediately. She recognized the sound and jumped out of bed intending to reach the bear spray beside the front entrance. She never made it. She grabbed a nearby chair and pushed it toward the animal, hoping to create enough space to escape, but the narrow room left her with nowhere to go. The bear moved toward her with sudden power. Its massive body filled the small space.
Vesper threw the chair, but it did not slow the animal down.
She screamed and tried to dodge past, but the bear was too fast. Its front paw struck her across the chest with tremendous force, knocking her backward into the kitchen wall. She fought back, swinging her arms, but could not overcome its strength and weight. The bear's jaws closed on her shoulder and pulled her down. Within seconds, she was overwhelmed and on the ground.
By the time the bear left the cabin, Vesper had suffered critical injuries.
She was alone. There was no one close enough to hear her calls for help. The following afternoon, her nearest neighbor became concerned when she failed to appear for their regular weekly check-in. After receiving no answer at the cabin, the neighbor contacted authorities. Emergency responders arrived a short time later. Vesper Quinn was pronounced dead at the scene from injuries sustained during the bear encounter. The coroner's report found that Vesper Quinn died from multiple traumatic injuries and extensive blood loss after being attacked by a black bear inside her cabin. Investigators later concluded that the lingering smell of smoked fish, combined with the bear's hyperphagia behavior, had motivated the animal to investigate and enter the cabin. The worn door latch, which had functioned fine for years, had finally failed at the worst possible moment. A latch that had held for 6 years gave way on the one night it mattered most. I do not know how you make peace with timing like that. The combination of circumstances that night had created a fatal chain of events that Vesper's careful precautions could not prevent. Vesper faced something that came to her in the dark. The next man I want to tell you about saw it coming and stepped toward it anyway, on purpose to protect two people he had only just met. It was 18th August 2017 in a remote park in south central Alaska. The mountains were clear and the weather was good as hikers moved through the remote backcountry trails. Rylan Alfredo was 36 years old and worked as a certified wilderness guide in Alaska. He had spent nearly 10 years leading hikers through remote backcountry trails and was known for staying calm under pressure. He had guided the same route more than 40 times and took pride in bringing every client home safely. At home in Juneau, his wife and their 4-month-old daughter were waiting for him.
You need to pause and hold on to this detail because what comes next relies heavily on it.
In August 2017, a newly married couple booked one of his multi-day backcountry hiking trips. Instead of spending their honeymoon at a beach resort, they wanted an adventure they would remember for the rest of their lives. They both loved nature and believed Alaska was the perfect place to begin their marriage. The couple seemed excited and well prepared for the journey ahead. The first day went exactly as planned. They saw eagles, moose, and even a coastal brown bear feeding in the distance along a river. Rylan kept the group far enough away to watch safely before leading them back toward camp. The couple took photographs and felt lucky to see so much wildlife without danger. The following morning, they continued along the trail. Everything was quiet until Rylan suddenly stopped walking. A coastal brown bear stood directly ahead. This time, the bear was not simply passing through. A partially eaten salmon carcass lay nearby. Rylan immediately understood the danger. Coastal brown bears are the largest bears in North America and can weigh up to 1,500 pounds. They become extremely defensive when protecting food sources.
A surprised bear protecting a food carcass will charge with little warning at speed exceeding 30 miles per hour.
Without raising his voice, Rylan told the couple to stay together and slowly back away. He stepped forward, placing himself between the bear and his clients. The group began following the standard retreat procedure, moving backwards slowly while avoiding sudden movements. For a few seconds, it seemed to be working. The bear watched them but did not advance. Then the bear charged without warning. Rylan knew the couple would not have enough time to escape if the bear focused on all three of them. Without hesitation, he deliberately drew the animal's attention toward himself. Before I continue, I want to make one thing clear. You need to know when to save your own life, especially when a lot depends on you. He shouted and made himself appear larger, holding his position between the bear and his clients. The massive animal accelerated toward him, with force covering the distance in seconds.
Rylan braced himself, but the impact was devastating.
The bear's full weight slammed into him, throwing his body backward hard onto the ground. His head struck a rock. Blood soaked into the dirt. He screamed, but the sound was cut short as the bear's jaws closed on his throat. His body went still beneath the bear's weight. The couple continued retreating until they were safely beyond the danger and eventually reached base camp, where they reported what had happened. Search teams began looking for Rylan immediately. They found signs of the encounter, but he did not survive. The coroner's report determined that Rylan Alfredo sustained catastrophic neck injuries, skull fractures, and massive soft tissue trauma during a coastal brown bear attack. Investigators later concluded that Rylan Alfredo died while protecting his clients during a defensive bear attack near the salmon carcass. The couple returned home alive because their guide chose to stay behind. His wife learned that her husband had died doing exactly what he believed was right. She returned to Juneau with their 4-month-old daughter and no one to bring her to the mountains as he had promised.
Imagine waking up every day to remember your husband lost his life to protect another home. I don't even have the answer to that.
Rylan made a choice to stay. The next person I researched made a choice in a single second that she had actually been told never to make. She had heard the exact warning the morning before it happened. It was August 6th, 2022, in a national park in Montana, and the trail crew had been working since early morning. Elowen Vale was 26 years old and had spent the better part of the previous year building a clothing brand from the ground up. The launch had gone well, but the months leading up to it had been relentless, and by summer she was running on empty in a way that rest at home was not going to fix. For her birthday, she decided on something different. She signed up to join a conservation volunteer crew in a national park for a few days, hoping that physical work in open country would do what staying home could not. Choosing physical work in the wilderness over a birthday celebration at home. I think most people reading this would not have made that choice. I find something admirable about that. Before the project began, every volunteer attended a mandatory safety briefing run by park staff.
They covered a wildlife behavior in detail with a specific focus on grizzly bears.
Volunteers were told to stay together, move calmly, never run under any circumstances, and follow the group leaders if an encounter happened. The reason running was dangerous was explained clearly. Grizzly bears have a deeply wired chase response, and movement away from them can trigger a pursuit that would not otherwise occur. The group practiced the procedures, talked through real scenarios, and left the briefing with a solid understanding of what to do. Elowen had paid attention. On the second day, the 6-person crew was clearing fallen trees from a remote section of trail. The work had been going smoothly. Dense brush pressed in on both sides of the path, and visibility into the vegetation was limited to a few feet in either direction. Dense brush pressed in on both sides of the path, and visibility into the vegetation was limited to a few feet in either direction. A grizzly sow was resting in that brush with her 2 cubs. Mother grizzlies with cubs.
Mother grizzlies with cubs are among the most dangerous wildlife encounters in North America.
A sow protecting cubs does not issue extended warnings. When she perceives a sudden threat at close range, the response is immediate, and the speed of a charging grizzly over a short distance can reach 35 miles per hour, faster than any person can run. As the crew dragged a large fallen branch off the trail, they disturbed the brush where the family was resting. The sow came out without warning. No huffing, no jaw popping, no bluff charge. She moved directly toward the group from close range, and the volunteers had almost no time to process what was happening before she was already on them. Everything they had learned in the briefing dissolved in the shock of the moment. Most of the crew froze. They reacted exactly how all of us will do. I think that is what people do not understand about these situations. You can know exactly what to do and still not do it. Others began backing away slowly. Elowen turned and ran. The sow locked onto her immediately. A running person activates the same instinct in a bear that running prey does, and the rest of the crew disappeared from the bear's focus the moment Elowen moved. The chase covered the distance between them in seconds. The sow hit her from behind and drove her to the ground, biting into her upper back and neck with the full force of a defensive attack. The assault lasted only moments, but caused catastrophic injuries to her spine and the back of her skull. She did not get up. The crew leaders called for emergency assistance immediately, while the rest of the volunteers stayed as still as they could. Park rangers reached the area as fast as the terrain allowed.
They found Elowen on the trail with injuries that were not survivable.
Elowen Vale died from injuries sustained during the attack. Investigators concluded that the sow had been defending her cubs after being surprised at close range, and that the attack had been a defensive response rather than predatory behavior. The volunteers had received correct and thorough safety training before entering the backcountry. She had sat in that briefing and listened carefully. That is not nothing. I think about what the rest of that crew carried home with them after watching it happen. The volunteers were in shock after what happened, and none of them returned to that park. Elowen ran in a moment of panic, despite knowing not to. The last case I want to cover today is about a man who moved toward danger on purpose, not to protect anyone, but to protect his dog. And that instinct cost him everything. It was June 11th, 2016, in a remote national park in Washington, and the trail was quiet, the way it usually is on a clear weekday morning. Corvin Ashford was 45 years old and worked as an electrician. Weekends outdoors were not something he had to be talked into.
Hiking had been part of his life long enough that it has shaped the most important parts of it.
He and his wife had met through a local hiking club years earlier, gone on their first date on a mountain trail, and eventually married at a scenic overlook. 10 years later, they still chose trails over restaurants and national parks over resorts. A relationship that started on a mountain trail and kept going back there for 10 years. That kind of life built around one shared thing is rare, and I think about what it costs to lose it on one of those same trails. Park rules require dogs to remain on a leash. The couple had let the dog walk ahead off leash on previous trips without any problems and had become comfortable with it over time.
Nothing had ever gone wrong, and the rule had started to feel like something that applied more to other situations than to theirs.
That morning felt the same as every other. The weather was clear, the trail was quiet, and they passed only a handful of other hikers in the first stretch. As they moved through a wooded section, the dog ran further ahead than usual and disappeared around a bend in the trail. Seconds later, they heard barking. Then something heavy moved through the brush. The dog came back around the bend at a full run. A large black bear was right behind it. The bear was not coming for the couple. It had been startled by the dog somewhere ahead on the trail and was chasing the animal that had surprised it. The dog was fast and the bear was focused entirely on it. In a different set of seconds, the bear might have followed the dog off the trail and into the trees, and the whole thing would have ended without contact. A few seconds in a different direction and they walk home with a story. That is the entire margin between a close call and what actually happened. Corvin stepped forward. He saw the dog coming toward him and moved to put himself in a position to use his bear spray, trying to create enough time for the dog to get behind them before he discharged it. It was a decision made in a fraction of a second, and it placed him directly in the path of a bear that was already in full pursuit. The bear reached him before it reached the dog.
The bear struck at a running speed during the chase, and the force of the impact alone was enough to cause serious injury.
Corvin was knocked hard to the ground, and the bear, now startled by the unexpected contact with a person, reacted with a single bite to his upper body before breaking off and disappearing into the forest. The entire encounter lasted only a few seconds. His wife was off the trail when it happened and was not injured. The dog ran past them both and was completely unharmed. Other hikers who heard the shouting called emergency services and park rangers and paramedics reached the trail as quickly as the terrain allowed. They found Corvin with critical injuries to his chest and upper body from both the impact and the bite. Treatment began on the trail and continued through transport, but the damage was too severe to stabilize. Corvin Ashford died from his injuries. Wildlife officers reviewed the incident and determined that the bear had been reacting entirely to the off-leash dog. It had not been following the couple or behaving aggressively toward people. The leash rule that the couple had been comfortable ignoring existed partly for this reason. A dog running loose in bear country can startle an animal and then lead it directly back toward the people it belongs to. The dog was completely unharmed. I sit with that every time I read this case, and I do not know what to do with it. In the weeks that followed, his wife buried him at a small cemetery not far from the overlook where they had gotten married. A few close friends came. She did not say much. There was not a lot to say about 10 years that could fit into that kind of moment. The dog went to a shelter 2 weeks after the funeral because she could not bear having the dog around her.